Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. A couple of days ago, I mentioned how crazy people get when you give them too much money. And I mentioned how it's pretty well accepted that for many people, winning the lottery is the worst thing that could happen to them. And I had somebody ask me, say, Steve, but is that really true? Or is that simply become like an old wives' tale or possibly an urban legend even that, it might not be backed up by truth? And, I suppose it probably depends on how you phrase it. Not everyone who hits the lotto has their life ruined by it, but a surprisingly large number of people who do hit the lotto do run into problems later that you'd think those problems be solved by money, but apparently not. So I went around and poked around looking for a story that would at least give us some of the highlights of these stories. And I found the story in the New York Daily News. This story is a couple years old, written by Nicole Bettet. Curse of the Lottery, Tragic Stories of Big Jackpot Winners. And I think this actually came out because a man wrote a book called Money for Nothing, One Man's Journey Through the Dark Side of Lottery Winnings. And they give a bunch of examples here. But according to the article, nearly 70% of lottery winners end up broke within 7 years. Even worse, several winners have died tragically or witnessed those close to them suffer as a result. So when they say 70% of lottery winners end up broke, well, are we talking about people who win anything in the lottery, or the big prize, or the Powerball, or the Super Bowl, or the jackpot, or the Super Happy Fun Ball? What are we talking about here? So we're talking about, I'm assuming, the big top prizes, the ones that make national headlines. Because I'll tell you some stories, and I've seen documentaries on some of this too. So it's amazing what happens. Abraham Shakespeare hit big for $30 million in 2006. His friends and families, of course, began hounding him for money. And he met a woman named Doris Moore, who convinced Shakespeare that she would help protect him from the greedy people around him. Moore convinced the lottery winner to transfer his assets to her, and then he disappeared. In 2012, she was sentenced to mandatory life without parole for his murder by a judge who called her cold, calculating, and cruel. So that's one example. Mr. Shakespeare passed away, apparently, as a result. Now, I admit it wasn't the money that killed him, but follow along here. David Lee Edwards. This is one I've seen a documentary about this guy by himself, and this guy here is the classic story. Edwards won a $27 million jackpot in 2001 while he's unemployed and living in Florida. He quickly blew through the money by purchasing, ready? A $1.6 million house in Palm Beach Gardens, 3 racehorses, a fiber optics company, a Learjet, a limo business, a $200,000 Lamborghini Diablo, and many other luxuries. I saw the documentary where he took a news person through his house into the room where he had the suits of armor. He had suits of armor on display just like you'd seen in a museum. And he said something to the effect of, I've always wanted a room like this. He apparently had always wanted a $1.6 million house as well, along with a fiber optics company. And the 3 racehorses. Now, are you hedging your bets that the first one's not fast enough so you get a second one and a third one? Or do you get 3 racehorses so you can hold your own horse races? Think about that. The Learjet, of course, is a fun buy, especially if you don't have a pilot's license, because I don't think he did. I believe he hired one to fly his Learjet for him. But if you want to know about something that burns through money, Learjets. Not that I have anything against them. I just can't afford one. Edwards and his wife returned to drug use and had numerous run-ins with police for possession of crack, cocaine, pills, and heroin. He lost all of his money in a few years and ended up living in a storage unit, surrounded by human feces. He later died in hospice care at age 58. So that's a sad, sad story. And, he may have died at the age of 58 otherwise. We don't know. But the point is that you'd think money could have helped him with some of these problems. Jeffrey Dampier. Jeffrey Dampier won $20 million in the Illinois lottery before his own family turned against him. The millionaire showered his family with cash and gifts, but that just wasn't enough for his sister-in-law. Dampier was kidnapped and shot in the back of his head by the sister-in-law and her boyfriend around 7 years after winning the jackpot. The couple was charged in his murder and are each serving a life sentence in prison. A 46-year-old Chicago man named Aruj Khan dropped dead the day after he won $1 million in 2012. An autopsy revealed that Khan died of cyanide poisoning. Both his sister-in-law and her father were suspected to be involved in his death, but no one was ever charged. Khan's winnings and property were divided between his daughter and his widow. Again, he may have been poisoned regardless of the winnings, but the timing there does seem kind of curious. Michael Carroll. National Lottery jackpot winner Michael Carroll was ordered to complete a 12-month drug testing and treatment order after admitting possessing cocaine with a street value of more than 1,500 euros. Carroll, 26, won 15 million US dollars in a British jackpot back in 2002. He was soon left with nothing after dishing out cash on parties, cocaine, hookers, and cars. Now, some guys are going to tell me that, Steve, this guy's a winner. But Carroll was jailed in 2006 following an altercation and was later convicted of drug possession. He was nicknamed the Lotto Lout and also reportedly spent his former fortune on a villa in Spain, quad bikes, demolition derby cars, and flashy jewelry. By the way, and I'm sure some people have noticed this already, many of these guys who win millions of dollars instantly revert back to 12-year-old boys and buy what they would have bought when they're 12 years old, like a demolition derby car or the Lamborghini. Don't get me wrong, you're an adult, you can buy a Lamborghini Diablo as well. But when you buy one and the Learjet and the 3 racehorses and the suits of armor, that sounds more like the planning done by a 12-year-old, not by a 55-year-old man. Then there's a guy, William Post III, just 2 weeks after winning $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery. Post had blown through $300,000 on a car lot, restaurant, and even an airplane, although he could not fly either. He was $1 million in debt 1 year after winning. So he won 16.2 and apparently spent 17.2 in the first year he had it. Not only was he broke and forced to declare bankruptcy, but his own brother was arrested for hiring a man to kill him. I wish it had never happened, he said. It was totally a nightmare. Post was later jailed for firing a gun over the head of a bill collector. He was on food stamps when he died at age 66. This, again, is according to the New York Daily News. Jack Whitaker is another one of these stories that I've seen covered several times. Very, very sad. And by the way, a lot of these stories happened to people who were nice. They were nice people. And they fell into a bunch of money, and then the circumstances around them changed. Jack Whitaker of West Virginia was already a millionaire when he won $300 million in the multi-state Powerball jackpot back in 2002. $315 million to be exact. Whitaker used most of his winnings for good. Like, he built churches, and he donated 10% of it to Christian charities. He also launched the Jack Whitaker Foundation to provide clothes and food to low-income families, and then things started to go south. Whitaker was arrested for drunk driving and threatening a bartender after this all happened. A woman sued him for groping her at a racetrack, and on 2 separate occasions, thieves robbed him, once outside of a strip club for $500,000 and another for $200,000. And I remember hearing about this where he was actually driving around and he apparently had suitcases full of cash with him. You never know what kind of walking around money you need when you've got that kind of cash. He and his wife divorced after he became an alcoholic. He apparently gave his 17-year-old granddaughter a weekly allowance of $2,100, and she then died of a drug overdose, as did her boyfriend. And Whitaker's daughter later died of unknown causes, but all of these deaths appear to have kind of happened right around the same time, and both Whitaker and his wife said they wished he had torn the ticket up. So imagine you're a 17-year-old granddaughter of some guy, and he gives you an allowance of over $100,000 a year. How do you celebrate? Start taking drugs. Evelyn Adams won twice of New Jersey, and she won it in 1985 and 1986. And so she then took all of her winnings, because she felt lucky, and went to Atlantic City, where she lost it all gambling. And according to the story again in the New York Daily News, after losing it all, Adams started a new life in a trailer park. Billy Harrell lost all of his $31 million winnings. He donated money to those in need. He lent some of his cash to those close to him, but his generosity proved to work against him. Being broke led to a split from his wife, and the Texas man was found dead in his home with a gunshot wound to his head, and they believe he committed suicide. Before committing suicide, he said, "Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me." The worst thing that ever happened to him was somebody handed him a check for $31 million. And now, here's the thing, and I am not a financial advisor. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm an attorney. I don't specialize in estate planning. But if you ever find yourself in a position where somebody hands you a check for $50 million, $75 million, $318 million. The moment you get some money, sit down with an estate planner or an attorney or somebody who can do this for you and create an irrevocable trust and take $5 million, which you won't miss. You won't miss $5 million because you got the other $313 million right here. Take $5 million and stick it in an irrevocable trust based on your age. Pick a decade or more out that no one can touch it, not even you. Put the money there, stick it there, and have instructions that, whenever the money can start getting paid back to you, it's going to get paid back to you in chunks. It'll be significant if you were broke, but not so much that it's going to put you in the same situation that you're in right now. And what happens is, as you burn through the rest of your money on hookers and cocaine and Learjets and fiber optic companies and herds of racehorses, as you start going down to hit that moment where you're going to go broke, okay? You're going to go broke. It's inevitable. We've seen it here so many times, right? You're going to be able to tell yourself, wait a second, I got that $10 million or $5 million parked over here that's going to be there for me 10 years from now. Now, when your friends come to you and your neighbors come to you and the people you haven't heard from since high school come to you and say, hey, by the way, dude, help me out, man. I need $100,000. You have a really good excuse. You can say, I'm really sorry, but my money is in an I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, an irrevocable trust. I can't touch it. Now, you don't have to tell them that you only got $5 million in it. You just tell them you've got one. And they say, what's that? And you say, talk to a lawyer. Blame it on the lawyer. Talk to a lawyer, and he said, I could take this money and stick it someplace that no one can touch it, not even me. And your friend is going to go, that's stupid. And you go, it might be, but I can't touch it. Sorry, I can't give you the money. And they go, but wait, you just bought a fiber optic company yesterday and a herd of racehorses the day before. And you go, yeah, I'm broke now. They go, what's with that big old gangster roll you got in your hand? There appears to be a wad of hundreds. And you go, oh, I'm sorry. The guy who mows my lawn's coming by later this afternoon. I owe him money, but I'm effectively broke. But again, even if you foolishly do buy the fiber optic companies and the Learjets and the Lamborghinis and whatever else, no matter what you do to yourself, that money's down there. And somewhere down the road, if any of these people had done that, well, maybe not the ones who were murdered, but somewhere down the road, if you do manage to go broke because you underestimated how long the money's going to last, that money's still there. And by the way, there might come a time where you literally go broke. You've got nothing. You're living in a storage facility in your own feces. But 7 years from now, I get that money out of the irrevocable trust. So if you're a financial advisor and you're watching this and you're really, really angry right now because there's a better vehicle than an irrevocable trust, put it below. I'm merely pointing out that there's methodology. There's some way of doing it. Whether that's it or not, I don't care. It might vary from state to state. It might vary from country to country. But there's going to be a way that you can peel off a small fraction that won't make a difference at the front end, but would make a huge difference if you were broke. Take that money and stick it someplace where no one can get at it, including you. Okay, that's the point. So again, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it, put it below. But my point is there's ways to do this. None of these people did that. And I have actually known one or two people who came into a lot of money. And I was actually talking to one of them about it. And he said, yeah, the first thing I did is I went to a law firm and said, I got all this money. How do I protect it? They said, oh, glad you asked. And they set up a bunch of stuff, including trusts. So there you go. But again, winning the lottery might not be the best thing that ever happens to you, but it's still fun to play. Questions, comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.